again with the Think Fitness Life podcast, episode 15, talking about nutrition strategies, what has worked with our clients and what we have experimented with and found that worked for us individually. It's going to be a fun podcast because I know that we all have a lot of good information to talk about here. So we're going to keep the announcement short this week. Comes out of a podcast with Ben Greenfield and Joe Rogan. And they've done a couple together. The more recent one was released like May 28th, around that time. And they go into, Ben specifically goes into talking about a procedure to help with aging, help with regeneration on the cellular level. And to briefly describe the procedure, you take your own blood platelets, you take your own bone marrow, and you're obviously sedated for this procedure, and they put it in a centrifuge with some, I believe that I forget the exact terms, I don't want to misquote it, but it was basically these cells that were in placental cells, and the cells that they're extracting are specific to cell-to-cell communication. So they work on your body's own system that does cell-to-cell communication. I think it's your paracrine system. And then you have it re-injected into your cerebral fluid, into your vertebrae and your spine, into different joints. And it's just supposed to really enhance the cellular regeneration process. So think of Wolverine. What do you guys think of this one?
If it enhances cellular growth at that level to heal something, if science says it works and its side effects are non-threatening, I don't see how this could be a problem.
Yeah, if it gets to a level where it could be so systemically abundant, could it reverse the aging process too, is my question. Could we see a Benjamin Button, thing going on here?
I think that's sort of the basis for all of this research and looking into it is can they literally reverse the aging process?
Yeah, longevity.
Yeah, but he does go on to talk about how this was basically a total body makeover, essentially, a total body stem cell makeover, and how he was the first person to ever do it on that level. I thought that was really interesting. And a lot of the procedures I hear about are in knees, hips, different joints that just aren't healing, or maybe an injury that has happened recently and they want to just get the fastest recovery possible. But I think the only problem with this type of procedure is right now it cost him, I think, $30,000, he said. So it's not realistic for your everyday average Joe who needs some type of piece to help him regenerate. So, there's got to be something else out there that can help along these same lines.
Well, there's I was going to say there's Peter Thiel has a thing that he does where he pays some 18-year-old kid who has perfect genetics, I don't even know, a ridiculous amount of money, and he injects the blood of this kid into him.
That sounds so creepy.
It's really creepy. Peter Thiel is not a normal guy. He's very bizarro. But I thought that was pretty interesting too. And apparently he feels amazing after he does it. And I don't know. There's obviously some science behind it, but that is one thing that goes on with the uber rich.
Yeah.
But all that stuff is so expensive these days. Well, we're getting past the traditional the cortisone shot and all that stuff. Now this stuff is getting pricey. And if you can find a method that's, let's say, under $100 to kind of mimic the same effects or even have greater ones on a full system, obviously the pharmaceutical companies are going to hate that because they want to make their money off of these crazy, injections and blood transfusions, whatever you want to take it. But if there's a simpler, easier way, this is a simple, you don't really have to think twice about it if you're dealing with an injury. And I would say you're going to probably see the next couple years, or maybe now, I bet you some top-notch athletes are taking this stuff, football players to help recover faster. I mean, this will change the whole game of athletics and sports, not alone just injuries in the medical field.
Well, they have barometric chambers and all that stuff, and to really help with the recovery process. But I think helping it on such like a systematic level and on a cellular level.
Think about someone who tears a tricep, like a football player. Normally it's 6 months. If they can, let's just say hypothetically, they can reduce that to say, hey, 3 months recovery and you'll be back. That is a huge improvement. Or like in studies have shown, a couple of weeks and you're already, X amount % better. I mean, you're looking at changing the whole injury return protocol completely.
Well, what about that BPC 157 peptide?
That is a peptide that has really, really strong healing properties to it. The ability to regenerate. As far as I know, I don't know nerves, but I know it does tendons, ligaments, and muscle tissue specifically if you inject it subcutaneously, and also you can administer it orally. And it rapidly helps with that regeneration process of tissue. And Ben Greenfield being one of those people that have, obviously he's written about it and talked about it publicly about his experience with it and has had great results. I think we mentioned you guys healed his golfer's elbow in under 2 weeks. I think 14 days he used it, completely healed, zero pain from being able to not even really bend his arm. So pretty crazy stuff. I mean, there's definitely, I've heard a lot about peptides and how well some of these things work. Again, we don't know really the long-term repercussions of taking something like this, long-term or even acutely at all. So
what's interesting about the BPC 157 is it's not really publicly used. Like, they don't use it in athletes. They don't use it in a clinic or anything like that. It's just kind of
it's not
exactly.
Because it's not like
public knowledge.
Like a steroid or a SARM where it would be banned by WADA or any of the doping committees for professional sports or Olympics. It's not on any of their controlled substances, so it is legal. Yeah,
and it shouldn't be, because it really doesn't enhance performance. It enhances recovery, which is an important part to the whole bigger picture. But on the cellular level, you guys can probably talk more about this, but it's just a peptide. It's just a polypeptide. It's just a long.
If it becomes mainstream and people are going to use it for performance enhancing, I bet you'll see people get on the board it's sort of like a steroid. Like when people got on the whole deer antler spray, same thing. It's an amino acid, but people freaked out because of its anabolic effect to the body. So eventually, I think that's where all sports goes. It's to be the best at the sport, bigger, faster, stronger, and basically, like you said, to recover quicker is the name of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, if it's not banned, I mean, it's a peptide. It's fair game. It's not creating any disadvantage.
Yeah, because a lot of these athletes, when they're in season, it's like go, 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 train, game, train, game, train, game. Probably not sleeping too much because they're out drinking, partying, train, game, train, game. So yeah, having extra things in your corner to help you recover better can just go a long way. Plus, Mike, you were talking to me a little bit about how it helps with your gut biome and your gut regeneration. So I think it has a lot of implications, especially because you can take it orally. But for anyone with Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, I'm definitely going to be ordering some after
really
this podcast.
Part about it, it's not selective to what it heals. It works systemically. So whenever you take it, it's going to heal everything. So if you got a junky gut going on and you've got some issues there with any GI tract or anything in that matter, you're going to be able to likely heal a lot of that. It's all, that's all muscle, that's all tissue, your stomach, all that smooth tissue. So why wouldn't it have that same effect as it would on a more of a bicep or elbow tendon or something along those lines?
Yeah. Yeah, to help with like just that extra healing. Well, I think it was really interesting podcast. Definitely check it out. Ben Greenfield with Joe Rogan. But one last thing I want to mention is he does also go on to say there's just nothing like fasting for the body. And I'm trying it out.
Like
I've done it for 3 days now, going strong, of just eating between. No, I'm eating from 7 p.m. and then I eat breakfast before 7 a.m. and then I don't eat anything in between. So I'm trying at least 12 hours. I'm trying to push that 14, 16. I definitely notice around hour 13 and 14, I get like, I can feel that I have like low blood sugar. I'm getting lack of energy. But that's also because like my training regimen hasn't really changed at all. And it might have to accordingly. But we'll see. But yeah, he just talks about how there's nothing like fasting for stem cell reproduction and regenerative processes and having your immune system, your digestive system work that much stronger because you gave it a little break. I mean, I can't stress enough that the way we eat is essentially, I mean, it takes about 3 to 4 hours for food to clear your small intestine. So if you eat 3 times a day, that would literally be like doing a 3 to 4 hour workout 3 times a day, 7 days a week, indefinitely. You're just gonna beat up on your body and just destroy it eventually.
Vacation.
So just like anything else, you gotta give it
or when you're eating
time off.
What foods are you kind of taking in? Are you going like all out, or are you monitoring what you?
I'm pretty strict with my diet and the fact that like I won't put sauces in. Like I'll just stick with like I love plain rice, cilantro, and lime. That's my go-to. And then like grilled chicken or baked chicken with a little bit of garlic powder, salt, pepper, and then just some veggies, just whatever we have at the time: carrots, broccoli, asparagus, green beans. So like I'm basically what I'm doing is I'm still meal prepping, but I'm eating 2 meals after. Or once dinner hits. So we make our dinner and then I have like my meal prepped meal. So calorically, I'm still.
You would think too, like
at the same
after
amount.
a long fast like that, like your insulin
sensitivity
sensitivity would be super high. Since you haven't really eaten anything for a long time, and that if you were to eat carbs, like the first thing you ate was just carbs, that you may have. Yeah, well, no, not that you may like get like feel like you're on crack. You know what I mean? Like
pass out.
Like it may give you. Yeah, it may give you a crazy like spike effect where I would say like maybe eating like a piece of toast with like like slather a bunch of like grass-fed butter all over it, obviously slowing down that digestion. That would probably be something that would be good for you as well.
Yeah, what I noticed is that performance-wise, I may need to have like water with like coconut water, something with a little bit of glucose in it, and coconut water is going to have more glucose and sucrose than fructose, and that's out of those 3, fructose is definitely the worst of the 3. But so I noticed, because I play soccer every Wednesday, that today I couldn't hold my sprints. Like I could just do like a short burst for like 2-3 seconds, and then I was like I had to just jog it back. It was funny. I couldn't get to that peak performance that I could normally do, and nothing else changed about my routine just except for the timing of when I eat. So maybe it just has to do with my body kind of adapting and adjusting, but maybe I do need to kind of get some fast-acting glucose in my system that isn't going to require my
it'll be kind of interesting because how long
digestive system to
because that might tell you if it's like just your body kind of adapting to a different energy source or just calories at a different time of the day. Or it's just.
Yeah, I think I'll do it. So I'm not going to try anything yet, like the coconut water for the days that I need to perform. But I am going to at least do this for 4 weeks just to see how I feel and
report back
see what changes come about. But yeah,
transformation.
Will do. I highly recommend, though, if anybody has any autoimmune dysfunctions or digestive issues, fast at some point, whether you start with a 6-hour fast and then you work your way to like a 12-hour fast. Just it's so beneficial. They talk about autophagy, where your body starts getting rid of sick and dying cells and gives the resources to the healthier cells. but then also they're just literally, you're doubling your stem cell production at like 16 hours to 24 hours. And then you're literally just giving your digestive system a break so it can function that much better the next time you need it.
I'll even do more fast on the weekends when I'm not, hitting the weights hard or need it for performance. And I can feel the difference or don't feel like I need to overeat on the weekends and maintain, my daily routine, which is good because I definitely know I'm getting a different benefit. And for me, big thing is the insulin sensitivity. I just want to be able to kind of drive that higher to increase performance and storage and, muscle gain.
Yeah. It's funny. It's like the first way I started too, I was just, like you said, you just kind of keep eating almost like out of habit. Like I remember waking up Saturday morning being like, oh, I don't necessarily need breakfast. I'm not lifting today either. So why not just go until I'm hungry? And then lunch rolled around and okay, I wasn't hungry. And sure enough, a couple hours before dinner, I was hungry, but I was like, all right, I can kind of wait an extra hour or two and make it to dinner. So,
and I think I would even say like you could even use this as like a nutrition strategy, or I'll even tell people, a little bit like I wouldn't say like a micro fast, but even structuring your nutrition throughout the day, where I'm a big proponent now of is telling people get all of your carbs before like 11, 12, and then taper off and just eat vegetables and lean protein the rest of the day. And you can still change your insulin sensitivity and affect your hormones over the nighttime as you sleep because you don't have that glucose spike.
I'm going to start calling you the Segway master. Yeah, it's a huge nutrition strategy that is misinterpreted. And I think a lot of people think, oh, fasting is I'm just starving, or I'm skipping meals, or I'm starving right now, but I'm just gonna hold out with willpower. And that's not how it works. First of all, calorically, you should be about the same amount if you're eating 3 to 5 meals a day already. If you're gonna start fasting, your calorie intake should still be at the same level. And to starve yourself and use that type of willpower is not going to be beneficial. You talk about having a good level of hormetic stressors on the body, and starving yourself when your body's clearly trying to give you signals that it needs some type of nutrients is not the best way to go about it. But planning ahead, like knowing that if you're not going to be exercising over the weekend, then maybe you have a bigger dinner on Friday night, and maybe you see how long you can go on Saturday until you start to get hungry again. But I think fasting is such a huge strategy to help people reach their goals and help your body sort of use or be more efficient at using its energy systems. But I think it's taken the wrong way and operated or executed improperly.
Now, do you guys tell people to fast, or when they ask for nutrition advice, do you kind of mention that to them, or do you kind of save that for a more advanced client?
The latter.
I say it for more advanced. Yeah, exactly. But I do have some specific ulcerative colitis clients, and that's a topic that's talked about like in the very beginning.
For me, because of there's, obviously it will affect your hormones when you're fasted. I work with some people who are very high stress, and with high stress comes high levels of cortisol. I don't want somebody,
which is our major stress hormone.
Yeah, major stress hormone. I don't want somebody essentially fasting who has high levels of cortisol
that will store fats,
for the simple reason that I don't want them to ramp up their cortisol any more than it already is. Because that can just lead to a whole bunch of other like weight gain or retaining weight when they're actually using intermittent fasting to try to lose weight. There's a lot of people that it is not for, so I'm very cautious on giving out that recommendation. I don't know that I've actually ever recommended intermittent fasting to anybody as a nutrition strategy. I have spoken about my experience with it, with the disclaimer that this may work for you, it may not. I'm not encouraging you to do it. I'm just telling you about my experience from it, which is positive. But I also think that it's not a substitution for proper nutritional, foundations, which is all the balance
Just like eating garbage still, but just at a shorter time.
Right. So yeah, I'm going to eat for 6 hours. I'm going to fast for 18 hours, and I'm going to eat garbage for 6 hours.
It doesn't cancel out.
Yeah, it's not the same. Like there's the quality over quantity type of idea. And yes, while you are probably staying within your range, and maybe you're not as insulin resistant, you still are eating crap, and those are garbage calories that really don't have any enzymes. As we've talked about in previous episodes, they don't have the nutritional value that's going to supply your body with those things that you need. Like you can't get the nutritional value from fasting. What you get is what Matt explained earlier, which is, a higher level of autophagy and, your body being able to turn over cells and mental clarity, maybe a little bit more energy, but you're not going to get the nutrients that your body needs by completely eating garbage and then fasting for 18 hours. So you don't want to take the idea out of context. It still needs to be kind of used with a nice balanced kind of plate of, fats, proteins, carbs if your body can handle them, or if you need them for performance, and a lot of veggies. I mean, really, there's no substitute for just eating clean.
And I think to kind of go back to answer your question, Eric, is like a place to start is just so dependent upon the individual and their level of commitment and their willingness to work hard. Like if somebody, or I shouldn't say just willingness to work hard, but in their environment and their routines and their social support, all that stuff plays a role 100%. Like when people have kids and people work long hours, it's a mess of poor eating at dinner, snacking throughout the day, donuts and sweets at the office, and long and late hours, and midday lunches where they have a drink or two that happens throughout the week. So I think it really depends on the individual, but a couple places I like to begin, just kind of dependent upon where they're at, is I do like starting off people creating good habits from the moment they wake up. So I like helping people think of realistic and sustainable, healthy options for breakfast, and then work into that same thinking for lunch and then dinner. And then I've sort of helped them and walked through them their whole day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And ideally we try to replicate that through the week, and we try to continue those good behaviors on the weekends as well. But that's one place I like to start. The other place I like to start is the Whole30. Basically it's an elimination diet, but the reason I love it is because and the whole idea of that elimination diet is not only do you cut things out of your diet, but then you slowly reintroduce them back into the diet, so that you yourself as the individual have just gained so much more knowledge and feedback about your body to really see what it is that causes you to feel bloated, what it is that your body just has trouble with. So yeah, those are two main strategies I start with.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's a couple places I tried. I don't always agree with like the USDA's dietary guidelines.
Is it because they're sponsored by Coca-Cola?
That's one of them. That's one of them. So it's a little.
Is it because they're sponsored by Coca-Cola?
It's a little cloudy to me on what's really going on there and the information they're putting out. Yes, I would say. I prefer to go with the Precision Nutrition, guidelines, which would be, for one, using hand-sized portion guidelines, but also just keeping a balanced plate of, protein, not too much, vegetables, different colors, vegetables, leafy greens. I like just making sure there's a balance of everything. And then with that person, dependent upon their physical activity, my basic guidelines for those people are, if you're highly active, right? If you're, let's say, if they're a desk jockey, first of all, like almost completely sedentary, desk jockey, yeah, it's my go-to. So yeah, well,
I love that term.
Like, so essentially, if they're mostly sedentary, I'm going to try to get carbs a little bit more, like limit the carbs out of their diet, at least in like 1 or 2 meals. If they're having carbs in every meal, or carbs are the main staple of each meal, I'm going to try to not completely turn it on its head, but focus on little changes, like making sure there's protein, fat, and veggies in each meal. And then, the carbs are more kind of, I guess, relative to what their activity level is for the day. So if I'm training that person 3 days a week, or let's say they're working out.
And real quick, I just want to stop you real quick just to announce to everybody that fruit are also carbs.
Yes, so is alcohol. But yes, but to your point, we can go down that rabbit hole. But carbs also.
I just wanted to, as people are thinking about it and they're thinking about carbs, protein, fats, I want them to also remember that their fruits that they're putting in their body are also those carbohydrates, and vegetables too, but such a low amount.
Yeah, and look, let's even, like, before we even go down, hey, how do you, what nutrition strategies do you implement with people? I would say first and foremost is I want awareness. I want people to know what they're putting in their body. I think before you actually give somebody a recommendation, or if somebody even thinks about, oh, what should I change? What should I do? I would say track what you're eating. Write down what you're eating, and that's all you have to do. Don't focus on changing anything. Just write it down, because what happens is if you can do that for just a week, 7 days, you can look back at that, and because you have to write it down, you will be very, very tuned in to what you're putting into your body throughout the entire day. So you build this awareness, and just by the process of awareness, you'll actually start eliminating and making better decisions, just because you're now much more mindful of what you're actually eating. And you haven't actually, so the strategy wasn't to change anything. The strategy was open up your eyes and pay attention, to what you're putting in your mouth. Be mindful, and that practice in itself can actually change that person's strategy. Most people, like we've talked about so many times, know what to do. They know exactly what they should be doing. They can't get themselves to do it. And that's part of it, is we're just going through life just shoveling, I was going to say a bad word, but crap into our faces. And
totally,
we're not paying attention. So we just need to wake up and pay attention, so.
But it's just so hard. I don't know. I've found that a lot of people, for whatever reason, just, I don't know, didn't, especially like you said, the desk jockeys, and my experience specifically in Boston, the financial district, so many people working long hours and working consistently throughout the day, not even getting up for lunch, and they just wouldn't write everything down. They wouldn't log anything. They might have like 1 or 2 good days, and it would just slowly.
But that's fundamentally wrong, and that's fundamentally wrong to me, right? Because let's look at it this way, right? Let's talk about exercise versus nutrition. If either of you were to start an exercise program, right? Are you just going to like wander around mindlessly, just hoping, or like, oh, I'm going to swap a couple of these things out? No, you're going to actually write it all down. You're going to look at it. You're going to follow it. And you're gonna monitor, like, oh, I did this many reps for this many sets. Like, you're gonna check what you're doing to your body. You're gonna be mindful of it all. You're gonna write it all down, because it's going to, so.
No, it's true, but there's definitely a lot of people out there who don't necessarily have the time to do all that, and they already know off the bat. They don't need to see the details. They already know off the bat that their nutrition sucks. So why not help give them the solutions?
Everybody's got a cell phone, right? Click the camera button, turn on your phone, click the camera button right before you eat, boom, click a picture, there it is. If you have a trainer or a coach, send it to them. Now they know what you ate. If you don't, great. You have a picture, you have timestamps of when all of those meals happen. You don't even have to track your calories. You just have to take a quick picture. It takes literally 5 seconds.
Right, because it's not a lot about calories.
I agree with the ease of it, but I just feel like the reality of the way that people operate when they're busy, when they got a million things on their plate, when stress is driving them from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m, and then they got to rush home to whatever, pick up the kids from school and get to soccer practice and whatever. They got literally a million things on their plate.
It could be tough. I totally agree, but
except to take care of themselves.
Yeah, but if people really want their goals or their nutrition plan to change, I think they're going to take more respect towards that that way. Now, but I've had it where people do it for like 3 weeks and then they fall off. But I find what I kind of the takeaway from that is once you get it, then to write everything down and then just go through and tell them what's quality and what's good. And I know we kind of mentioned this with the USDA or whatever the food table is pyramid, is a lot of times those companies or these people are lied to about what's actually good for you, what's bad. And, you walk down the middle aisles of the grocery store and you're seeing like, Fortified, it's got all these vitamins. And a lot of people think that's good for them, which is ridiculous.
You see natural on the label, which means nothing.
And I think a lot of people are tricked into buying these food that they think are healthy. Like a lot of people be like, oh, I buy these, these Cliff Bars, all these bars. And I'm like, well, that's still processed food. You're not really doing yourself a favor here.
Unfortunately, labeling a whole another rabbit hole we could fall down to, but essentially, you had to be skeptical because they're not trying to educate you with the label. They're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Like no sugar added is just a joke because there's some other type of sweetener in there. But there's no sugar. It's like, oh, I'm not touching you. It's like that silliness.
But one of the biggest strategy there is I tell a lot of my clients is get rid of all the processed stuff. Like that stuff's not really food. That doesn't count as food. That's just stuff in a package that's a substitute for natural food. And then they start to think about that and think, oh, this isn't really actual benefit nutritious food for me. Then you can start to see everything else compiled. And then they have to fill all these snacks and these processed foods with healthier foods, which is obviously proteins, vegetables, and some sort of healthy fat.
Do you specifically tell your clients to write down or take a picture of what they eat before they eat it, so they have to like have a second to contemplate, is this a good decision or not?
That's the first time I've heard of it. I think that's actually a pretty good idea. I've never done that. I've had people write it down and give me like a list or a spreadsheet of stuff.
Gotcha. And you use it as a tool like for a couple weeks, or do you have clients who continue to do it to this day?
I definitely don't have people who continue to do it. I would say, to Eric's point, like you kind of just get it going for a couple weeks, and most people are going to fall off. I mean, I myself, I've tracked food for maybe a month at a time max, and then I fall off. You're right. We get inundated. It's not easy, but if I have something that I want to accomplish, I mean, I want to take the necessary steps to do what's necessary.
And that's the thing. So you use it as a tool. It's not forever. You use it as a tool, right? And you progress yourself to the next step.
But you could also think like this tool could also build a behavior where they no longer need that tool. Now it's just ingrained in their head, which I know will work for some people. They have this list and all of a sudden they see the food that was on the list week 1. They're like, I'm not going to eat that because I already know that food's not good for me. So it could also sometimes build that good behavior of, okay, now we're setting up sort of like the precision nutrition guidelines behaviors, and then you can kind of move on to the next behavior if need be.
Specifically add to what you just said, I love how precision nutrition coaches its trainers on that is change one behavior at a time. And you do it, what do they say, like 20 days, I think, 3 weeks before it's a permanent change. Is that right? 21 days. I love that because I feel like a lot of people end up failing, especially like New Year's resolutioners, because they just took on way too much all at once and nothing ever got solidified, nothing got easy, nothing got routine, and that they didn't get better at anything, and it just came overwhelming and just like everything just fell to the wayside.
Yeah. Precision Nutrition, their process, and there's a great article that maybe we can even link to about this. It is where they talk about deconstructing your goal, and like especially your nutrition goal, into a skill, and then that skill is then broken down into what they call practices. And so the practice would be the same term for behavior or habit, which you guys we've mentioned 20,000 times already today. But when you say behavior can have like a negative connotation to it. Habit can kind of have a negative connotation to it, or it seems like it's work. When you say that, practice seems like it's more of like it's something that I'm doing because I want to do it, right? Because I want to be better. So they use that term practice, which I really like, and it's kind of crazy that it's crazy how just the vernacular can like actually create a different like response to that word. But so they use practice, and so like let's say the goal
Back
for
to
the
psychology.
person is they want to learn how to eat healthier so that they can lose weight. That's their goal. So then what's the skill that you would need? So we're going to take that and deconstruct it and say, what's the skills that you would need in order to be able to, learn how to eat healthier and lose weight? Well, I need to be more conscious of my eating. I need to know and feel when I'm full because I overeat. So we need to have the skill of learning when we're full. So what are we going to do? We're going to practice eating on, one meal. Like you said, we're not going to pick 4 different things. We're going to pick lunch, and we're going to eat lunch, and we're going to eat well when we're satisfied, not when we're full. Okay, so now we have our goal. We have the goal broken down into what skill or skills that we need to obtain. And then we have how do we implement a practice or a habit that is going to actually help us build the skill that's going to lead to the behavior. So they use a really nice like kind of deconstruction process of that. And you could pretty much use that process with any type of goal that you have. Every goal that you want to achieve requires you to learn some sort of skill or ability that you don't currently have. Otherwise, you would have achieved that goal already. And every skills are not something that are characteristics of ours. They are learned abilities. So they are things that we can improve with practice. So we just need to come up with some sort of practice. And that's where people kind of get caught up in all the like, they have to revamp everything, and I'm just going to go and do Weight Watchers, or I'm going to do intermittent fasting. I'm going to revamp everything. It's really about making that one small little habit change that helps you build the skills that are going to help you, achieve that goal.
Yeah, I think John C. Maxwell said, "The secret to your success lies in your daily routine," or something like that. And it's so true. It's not about like some big event or achievement that you have to accomplish. But it's just about that slow, consistent effort. I know we've repeated it over and over again, but it's like just change the little habits you do on a daily basis. Like instead of reaching for that soda, change it to a water, change it to a coconut water, change it to something else rather than that habitual soda.
Okay.
Instead of having that donut, like let's start planning out a better option. And just about those little changes like that and creating those habits, creating that awareness, like you said, just kind of that first step. But so my question to you guys then is, say that I logged everything for you guys, and for the most part I was eating pretty okay. Maybe portions were off. Maybe I had a lot of cheese and stuff. Maybe I had a lot of,
fruit.
Whatever, dairy, processed, bad sourcing, all that stuff. Where do you begin? Do you like to start at the beginning of the day, or do you like to work on everything as a whole? Like, where do you guys go with it next?
For me, I think that which meal do I pick? Yeah, so which meal do I pick? I almost always start with breakfast because, for one, we've talked about this in previous podcasts, I believe, we have a set capacity of our cognitive ability, meaning as the day goes on and we have to make more choices and decisions, we actually lose willpower, and that willpower essentially gets diminished. So if we can focus on making better choices in a moment in the day when we're actually at our best, because we're working on a full night's sleep, hopefully, or at least some sleep, we'll be able to make better decisions in the morning. So I may focus on breakfast. If that person is high stress and cortisol, I want them eating protein and fat in the morning because it's going to help with that reduction of cortisol, and it's going to help them kind of not have all these blood sugar spikes throughout the day and ride the carb coaster, and they're going to have a lot more balanced energy throughout the day. So there's that. There's also just, it's kind of like that make your bed analogy, meaning like even if like the only thing if you make your bed every day, what it essentially does is it sets the tone. It's the first thing you're going to do in the day, and it's going to set the tone for the rest of the day, meaning like no matter how crappy the rest of your day goes, you will still have one win that you can chalk up in the win column saying my bed is made. So that's kind of like that breakfast one too. Like your breakfast can be bad, your lunch could be bad, you can have all this snacking between, and like, let's say you had a great dinner. What's the likelihood that you ever hear of people really having like, oh, like I just, I had a really poor breakfast and I had a horrible lunch, but yeah, I just ate like, salmon and broccoli for dinner. Like, you never hear that. You always hear, I had a great breakfast. I had a pretty good lunch, and then all the wheels fell off at the end of the day, right? Dinner wasn't that great, and then after dinner was over, I was still hungry, so I had a bunch of like chocolate, and then I had a couple glasses of wine, and it's because we have that, decision-making fatigue that happens. So why not get the ball rolling earlier in the day, establish those habits early on, start with breakfast. Once breakfast is dialed in for, I would even say not even like just a couple weeks, but like, let's get it to like a month, 2 months, breakfast is dialed in. Let's then move on to lunch. Now we've got breakfast is solidified. Lunch is now in the works. Lunch is now solidified. Now we can start to move to dinner. But what we've done is like, we've worked with people when they are at their best, when they're at their best decision-making time and their least amount of cognitive fatigue, all those things that are going to help them just make better decisions. I'm going to go that route with people for those reasons.
Yeah, and I think the timing has a lot to do with it too. Besides what we talked about fasting, a lot of people I've trained, and I'm sure Matt and Mike, you've trained, like they'll be like, oh, I didn't, I had a yogurt and granola for breakfast, or most people skip breakfast because they just don't have the time.
Yeah.
And I think that nutrient timing and kind of more shifting, I want to say all your calories, but more calories to the beginning of the day can have a benefit. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Man, it just depends on when the person's working out, in my opinion. And I would say, though, man, that is tough. I would say in every experience that I've had and every person that I've heard from's experience, like in podcasts or whatever, reading an article, they're all doing it at night. And I'm not really, that's a really good question, because I'm not really sure what the benefit would be if you switch that.
Because I was always thinking, okay, if you have, it's just the opposite. Like you might start your fast earlier in the day. Say if you have like dinner at 5 and don't eat from 5 to say 6 in the morning, it's just changing the ability for your hormones and your body to use different substrates. Or like I mentioned earlier, what I tell a lot of people to do is maybe after a workout, don't have carbs. Have carbs before you work out, but then afterwards just stick to vegetables, protein, some healthy fat. Therefore, your body will switch over and it's not going to get that spike in insulin and drive the blood sugar levels up, where you can almost use more fat as a source of fuel, so therefore promoting more fat loss. And you can mess around with it on lifting days and non-lifting days. And that's another strategy I like to kind of implement with people, is kind of I wouldn't say cycling, I really don't like that word, but kind of switching different meal plans for different days. So, you have your cardio day, your heavy strength day. Well, your heavy strength day, you're getting good quality carbs and food in. And then on your cardio days, is going to be your lighter day, you might eat a little less, maybe more vegetable, still have some protein, but more fat based. So you're not really driving up the insulin sensitivity up.
Yeah, I think the only thought I have about the packing all those calories at night is just, if you worked out that day, whatever other activities you did during the day, I feel like to sort of aid in that regeneration process and the recovery process is going to be when you're asleep and all your other cellular regenerative processes begin. So kind of giving everything the resources it needs while it's
later on
operating that way while you're asleep would just be my thought. I also don't think I could pull off having having a switch like that and not having that many calories after my and eating them all before my workout. I don't think I could make that switch, but it's interesting, and I definitely would look into it after I'm done with the way I'm fasting right now.
Well, because that's what I've been kind of messing around with now, and I've seen some good results. And obviously, this is for us kind of lifting and stuff. But for someone who's looking for like fat loss, I think any kind of control behavior diet, or having a grasp on when you're kind of eating and what you're eating will go a long way. Because at that point, they're not really worried about, oh, how much am I going to get for my 95% to RM. They're more worried about how can I drop the pounds and feel good and be healthy
in the quickest
amount of time possible.
Go ahead, Matt. No.
Well, I was going to say, what would be the fine line between restoring glycogen post-workout to promote lean muscle mass in your body and promote recovery for that to next day's workout, and going with the mindset of, well, I'm just going to raise my lean body mass and increase my metabolism and my BMR, versus no, post-workout, don't get carbs, get protein, get vegetables, let your body use some of the energy substrates it has on its system already. You know what I mean? Like, I would want to understand, I guess, in depth which route would be best and which one has different strengths and weaknesses, and what are they?
Yeah, I was going to add to that and say that there's like this three-way tug of war that's always going on with like performance, health, and longevity. Meaning, like, if you want to perform, then you have to train a specific way with the high intensity. You're going to be stuffing carbs into your system, which we know from a longevity standpoint probably doesn't have a whole lot of benefits, right? Where intermittent fasting and more reduced carb diets can have more focus on longevity. If we want optimal health, so like eating a calorie restricted diet is going to have you more focused on longevity, whereas like eating a more balanced diet will give you better health. And then there are other areas and aspects of like how you would work out, the intensity levels, the programming, alongside advanced nutrition strategies that focus on performance. But again, if you're focused on performance, you're taking you're taking years off your life, right? And your health is suffering. Like, if your focus is to PR your deadlift, you cannot have great health because or like bodybuilding, for example. Like, if your performance is to be as big as you can possibly be on stage, and you're just stuffing calories in your body and pounding your body with weight, well, your longevity is going to suffer. You don't see any bodybuilders that are living to be into their 80s, 90s, centenarians. Yeah. So that's the thing. So if you look at that, like, everything we do comes at a cost.
No, right. And energy is not created or destroyed. It's transferred, essentially.
Right. So you got to choose. You got to look back at, like, what is my goal? Is my goal to live a long life? Is it to be healthy? Or is it to have some sort of performance, metric that I want to achieve? Just realize when you make that decision, you trade something off.
Yeah, Matt, I would say I look at it more from obviously performance for myself, but for like many people, maybe people listening, more of that, what's going to be that longevity health. So that's where I might have said, hey, cut the carbs later in the day, post-workout, where I know if I have a football player, I can't tell them that because that's right. That's lean muscle mass I'm losing in strength. So I think it, like Mike said, it has its trade-offs and geared towards more the health side, I'm thinking.
So essentially it really comes down to, and it always will, the individual, their starting point, and their goals, where they want to take their training and then their life. And I implore anybody to work out, and while you're working out next time, or maybe you're cooking a meal, or you're at a yoga class, whatever it may be, you're going on a walk, and a thought comes to your head and you're questioning something or you're curious about something, please write in Think Fitness Life, all one word, at gmail.com. We'd love to answer any questions or talk about any topics that people are thinking about, especially our listeners. And that can be our new news segment. So we don't have to talk about injecting little boys' blood into other people.
I like that. I like talking about that stuff. I like talking about the weird stuff that's going on in this world, because there's always some weird stuff going on.
Whatever gets Mike excited over there.
Wait, is there a way that I can donate my blood and get paid for it? For people to be healthy?
Yeah.
No, I know.
No, I do too.
I mean, for this specific lab,
just use that as an opportunity.
Under a certain age, you can only they only accept you can only transfuse transfusions of blood if you're over the age of 35. They'll only do it, and it costs I think $8,000 per transfusion. And I don't know how long that lasts, or what the details of that is, but that's just some sort of tech company in Silicon Valley, capitalizing on who knows? There's some research. Who really knows? I don't know if there is. But anyway, way off topic.
Yeah. Well, to bring it back to some closing statements, I think the important takeaways here are change one thing at a time to really make a sustainable, permanent change. And that's gonna be one big benefit to keep in mind. And then I think the other important thing that we didn't really get to talk into too much is sugar cravings and stuff like that. And I think the first strategy for people is just regain control. Tell yourself no, whether you make a deal with yourself that you said no on Mondays and Wednesdays, or you can just prolong it another hour. Obviously we're going to talk about good sourcing, so don't eat cake, eat a piece of fruit, or have like some raw honey or something like that. But little wins, but like Mike was saying, low-hanging fruit. Pick little wins. If usually you have sweets just before dinner because you just can't wait, tell yourself no, I'll save it till after dinner. That's a little win that will go a long way into your psychology of understanding your self-efficacy and gaining confidence at regaining that control. And all of a sudden you're pushing it back 2 hours, then 3 hours, and then you don't have sweets all week, regaining that control.
Yeah, that's called the snowball effect. And it's simply starting with something really small, and then as it continues to roll and go downhill and continues to pick up speed and steam, it gets bigger and bigger, and it becomes harder to stop. So yeah, now that can work opposite too, right? That can completely, diminish over time as well if you're, choosing bad habits. But yeah, absolutely.
As always, with nutrition, be mindful of what you're eating. Obviously a lot of the stuff in between the outsides of the grocery stores are just crap and junk. So people listening, stay on the outsides, fruits and vegetables, lean meats, just like everything else, whole foods first. Get a variety of whole foods, lots of fiber in the diet goes a long way to helping you in your goals. And also just, keep on the track of, monitoring what you're eating and changing your nutrition plan if you don't see it working. I think a lot of people get stuck in these ruts and they don't see it working. Change it up. Always changing until you find the one that works best for you.
Do not underestimate the power of your environment and how much influence it has over you. We talked about this in I think it was actually last week when last week we talked about growth and fixed mindset, and the power of the influence of the environment and just the setting that you're in, and how much it can actually influence your decision making and the choices you make, the healthy choices you make. So a couple quick strategies. A kitchen makeover is a great way to completely overhaul your environment. If you don't have junk food in your home, you will not reach for it. If it's there, you will reach for it. You bought potato chips with the intention of eating potato chips. So be very intentional about how you approach, setting up your environment. If you know that, you're going to, have ice cream at the end of a night, and there's probably something that's going to trigger that. Maybe it's a high stressful day. That's because you're going to get dopamine, and that ice cream is going to make you feel good. Don't have ice cream in your house, or find somebody in your house and warn them and say, hey, this is my tendency. Can you please, call me out on it, or at least make me aware when I'm in that situation, because I just go to and do it. Sometimes we just kind of unconsciously just reach for these things without even thinking about them. And before we know it, we feel like, junk, and we're just like, what did I just do? And then we shame ourselves, and there's this whole cycle that just happens, this negative cycle. There's negative feedback. Yeah. So really, it's like focus on your environment. To that too, there's a big reason why, and I always use this example, and we know we're not huge CrossFit fans here in this arena, but CrossFit, the one thing they do really well is they set up an environment that is healthy, meaning you go there and you are part of a tribe where everybody is focused on eating healthy, everybody is focused on staying fit and exercising. So surround yourself with people that are going to be able to rub off on you a little bit. You're a product of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And so that is a huge undervalued area that people can focus on when they're struggling with making good decisions on their own. Go back, find people that you can surround yourself with that are making the decisions, model their behavior, or just spend enough time around them so that through osmosis, those things start to rub off on you, and you're going to be in a lot better shape, than you are trying to do this on your own.
Yeah, and then the only thing I want to add is, like you were saying, changing your environment. Like if you're the matriarch of the family or the patriarch of the family, take that control. Don't just get something because, well, the kids like it, or the kids will only eat this. Like, no, that's not how it works. It works that whatever they have available to them, they're going to eat. And obviously sugar addiction starts at a young age. So you're going to get kids who are going to scream for that chocolate bar or that gummy snack or that fruit yogurt. And
don't say to yourself, it's okay because they're kids and it's kids' food. I'm sorry, but if you're feeding your kids things that you wouldn't even eat yourself, you should really take a deeper look at, what your values are and what you're putting value into. That is a human being. Yes, they're smaller than you, and yes, they're not, but it's even more critical in that point because they are underdeveloped and they are in that stages of still developing, where it is critical that they're getting proper nutrition and they're not being nutrient deficient and getting all of these, ADD and all these other ailments that we hear people popping up with, and kids are, having all these food allergies and sensitivities because they don't have enough different things in their diet because they're eating chicken tenders and fries. Don't put up with that as a parent or as somebody who has control, as Matt said, over the family situation and their food environment.
I don't think we announced what we're going to talk about next week. So if you're still listening, we're going to be talking about big picture programming next week.
Oh, they're with us. And if they're with us, man, they're diehards. So.
Oh, they're diehards already, for sure. So if you're a diehard, you should also write in an email, even if it's just like a funny meme. Maybe it's a gym meme. Maybe it's a cute dog, or you have a question or a comment or concern, or you want to just tell us how bad we are. We're always open to criticism. So again, thinkfitnesslife@gmail.com. Please write us in. And that wraps up today. Peace.